CEO had just finished a long day of meetings and negotiations, her mind filled with numbers, projections, and responsibilities that seemed endless. She stepped into the elevator of her corporate tower expecting nothing more than a quiet ride, down to the lobby where her driver would be waiting. She pressed the button for the ground floor and leaned against the wall, allowing herself a rare moment of stillness. Just before the doors closed, a young boy about 10 years old hurried inside, holding a worn backpack. His clothes were simple but clean, and his eyes carried a brightness that seemed untouched by the weight of the world. Standing next to him was a woman in a janitorial uniform, pushing a cart. The CEO recognized her. She had seen the woman cleaning the halls late at night, often overlooked by everyone else. The woman smiled nervously at the CEO, then looked down at her son, whispering something under her breath. The boy, however, was not shy. He looked straight up at the CEO with an unusual seriousness for his age. Then he spoke with a tone that caught her off guard. "Please don't talk." The words hung in the air, sharp and unexpected. The CEO blinked, confused at what she had just heard. Her instinct was to ask what he meant, but something about the boy's face told her to pause. His eyes were steady and calm. Not mocking, not playful, simply clear, as if he carried knowledge far beyond his years. The elevator began to descend slowly through the tall tower, its hum, the only sound filling the space. The janitor, his mother, fidgeted. Clearly embarrassed, her cheeks flushed as she whispered to her son, "Apologize to the lady now." But the boy shook his head. He stood his ground, his gaze still fixed on the CEO, who, for reasons she could not understand, decided to obey. She did not speak. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes, and then with a sudden jolt, the elevator lights flickered. The machine shuddered and stopped between floors. The janitor gasped, gripping the railing. The CEO straightened, her heart pounding. This had never happened before in her years working in this building. The boy, however, remained calm. He turned to his mother and gently said, "See, I told you not to talk." Then he looked back at the CEO and added, "You are safe now." The CEO's mind raced. She wanted to demand answers but remembered his words. She held her silence, though curiosity burned inside her. Within moments, a loud crackling came through the emergency speaker. The voice of security was strained. "There has been an electrical issue. Stay calm. Help is on the way." The janitor clutched her son, whispering prayers under her breath. The CEO kept watching the boy. He sat on the floor, crossing his legs as if this was something ordinary. Then he spoke softly without being asked. "Sometimes silence protects us. Words can trigger things we do not see." The CEO frowned. She felt chills on her skin. "What do you mean?" she wanted to ask. But the boy shook his head slightly, as if reading her thoughts. "Don't talk," he repeated. More minutes passed, the confined space growing warmer. The CEO noticed her breath quickening. She had never liked small spaces. Now trapped in this steel box, she felt panic creeping in. She clenched her fists. Then, to her surprise, the boy began humming a soft tune, his voice gentle, filling the elevator with a strange comfort. It was not a song she recognized, yet it carried a calming rhythm. The janitor stroked her son's hair. Tears in her eyes, she whispered to the CEO quietly enough that her son might not hear. "He has always been different ever since he was very little. He senses things. He warns me of accidents before they happen. Sometimes I don't listen, and bad things follow. Today, when we left home, he told me to bring an extra flashlight and food. I thought it was silly, but I packed them anyway." The CEO listened, astonished. The janitor pulled out a small flashlight from her cart, turning it on just as the emergency lights dimmed. The boy smiled. "See, Mom, you listened this time." Time dragged on, but strangely the CEO no longer felt the crushing weight of fear. She felt drawn to this child whose mysterious presence seemed to guide them through the unknown. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the elevator jerked back to life, slowly descending until at last the doors opened to the ground floor. Waiting staff rushed forward, asking if they were all right. The janitor thanked them, holding her son's hand tightly. The CEO stepped out, dazed, still silent. Her driver rushed to her side, asking questions, but she shook her head, signaling she was fine. She turned back to the boy, who now simply waved at her as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Then he said with that same calm voice, "Remember, Sometimes silence saves. The CEO could not sleep that night, replaying the moment again and again in her mind. She thought of how close she had been to speaking, how instinct drove her to question, yet something in her heart had told her to trust his, warning perhaps her voice or panic could have triggered another chain of events. Maybe her speaking could have caused someone to move in a way that worsened the situation. She would never know for certain, but one thing she understood was that the boy had seen something invisible to others. Days later, she called the janitor into her office. The woman was nervous, thinking perhaps she was in trouble, but the CEO smiled gently. "I wanted to thank your son," she said. "He reminded me of something I had forgotten in this world of constant noise, endless meetings, endless words. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from silence." The janitor's eyes filled with tears. She confessed life had been difficult for them. She worked nights to provide and often worried about her son, but she always believed he was meant for something greater. The CEO reached into her drawer and handed the woman an envelope. Inside was a scholarship fund for her son and additional support for their family. From that day forward, the CEO carried the boy's words with her. She began entering meetings differently, listening more than speaking, finding power in restraint. Her colleagues noticed the change. Deals became smoother, relationships more genuine. Employees felt heard in a way they never had before. Her company thrived, not because she spoke louder, but because she embraced the strength of quiet. And whenever she stood in an elevator watching the doors close, she remembered the night a janitor's son told her don't talk, and how those simple words changed everything forever.